Friends, as we come together and this morning, we are saddened by the loss that has fallen upon this community, but we are also incredibly grateful for a life of great intention and meaning, for Lois's days that graced this earth for 93 years, and were a true sense of inspiration and comfort not only to her family, but to our entire community. And as we come together in this Gordon Chapel, a place where she celebrated so many wonderful life cycle milestone events in her family, we are comforted by the memories that we hold so dearly in our hearts. I also want to welcome those who are joining us via live stream this morning. And I'd like to ask for all of those who are here, please to silence any cell phones you may have brought with you so as not to disturb our service for this morning. We begin today with a psalm of consolation from Psalm 121, Esa Enai. Esa Enai, El Harim, Me'ayin, Yavo Ezri, Esa Enai, El Harim, Me'ayin, Yavo Ezri, Ezri, Me'im Adonai, Osei, Shamayim V'aretz, Ezri, Me'im Adonai, Osei, Shamayim V'aretz. I lift up my eyes unto the mountains, from where does my help come? I lift up my eyes unto the mountains, from where does my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and the earth. My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and the earth. Death has taken our beloved Lois Frankel. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For Lois's love that united us in life, and which death cannot sever. For her companionship that we shared along life's path, and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness, and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us the ever new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. Adonai mi agor ba'ohalecha, mi yishkon b'char kodshecha. Adonai, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain. those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless but honor those who revere God, who give their word and come what may do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. We continue now together with the reading of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We are taught, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mivorach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people, we are well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us, yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave and that there is strength in faith. With Job, we say, Adonai natan, God, you have given. You gave us a loved one who will not be forgotten. For all that was good and enduring in Lois's life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai lakach, God, you have taken away. We pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and love, as we now say, Yehi Shem Adonai mivorach, blessed be the name of God, now and forever. Lois was a woman of tremendous grace, elegance, and class throughout her 93 years. She was born into a loving family and found her shared hearting also of blessed memory during her time at Wellesley College. Lois settled in Houston with Harding, and together they shared 62 years of marriage together. The family grew and expanded to include children Richard, Douglas, Jim, and her bonus children, Greg and Carol, who Lois always considered to be her daughter. The family knew good and wonderful times together, and Lois soaked up each and every one of them. Lois appreciated the arts and was active in the Society for the Performing Arts, the Houston Grand Opera, and the Houston Ballet. She was not only a patron, but a strong financial supporter. She was recognized for her kind attention and devotion to these fine organizations and institutions frequently over the years. Lois excelled as her family grew to include her grandchildren and their spouses, Kevin, Christina, Scott, Dara, Leslie, Gary, Lisa, and Evan. And then there were her special stars, her great-grandchildren, Ivy, Millie, Simon, Will, Hunter, Cooper, Hannah, Bailey, Henry, and Maddie. No celebration or milestone event was complete without Lois's participation and unconditional love. Lois was always ready to share in the joy of a special moment. Throughout her life, she remained close to her sister Renee, her niece Lori, and her nephews Ken, his wife Rebecca, and Peter. Most recently, Lois and I sat together celebrating a special 90th birthday party. She looked as beautiful and elegant as always, and immediately began sharing about the accomplishments of nearly every family member. True story. Lois took immense pride in all that each one had done, not only for themselves, but for the community, following in her footsteps. She was radiant and truly glowing. What a blessing to have such a prominent matriarch at the helm of the Frankel family for over 90 years. Lois's legacy will carry forward as the family remembers her talents, her tremendous gifts, and always her grace and elegance. Zichrona livracha, may our memory be for a blessing today and always. As together we always say, Amen. And now it's an honor for me to invite some of Lois's family members to share some personal words. First, I'd like to invite Lisa.
Nanny Lois was one of the most interesting women I have ever known. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the top 3 things I learned from my grandma. Number 1, hold on to where you came from. I always laugh about the fact that Nanny moved from New York over 70 years ago and still had the strongest New York accent I've ever heard. And number 2, follow your passions. Nanny loved to travel. She traveled to every country, even ones I have never heard of. Nanny also loved to read. She loved the arts. She collected the most interesting artwork and sculptures. She dined at the trendiest restaurants. She played bridge and mahjong. She went to the ballet, Broadway plays. The list goes on and on. She lived a very full and active life. Nanny also enjoyed watching sports. Her knowledge of the Houston sports teams was almost shocking. She followed her passions in life and was a lifelong learner. And finally, number 3, love your family. Nanny loved her family. She adored her sons. She loved each of her grandkids, great-grandchildren, and her nieces and nephews. Her incredibly close relationship and connection with my Aunt Renee is something that I have always admired. She cherished Aunt Renee's kids like they were her own. Nanny was very proud of her family. She had wonderful friends who she adored as well. So much so that I thought several of her close friends were my great aunts growing up. I know that Nanny lived a very big, full life. She held on to where she came from. She followed her passions and was a lifelong learner. She took great pride in her family and loved all of us dearly. Nanny would be very proud of the love in this room today.
Next, I'd like to invite Douglas to share some personal words. Just take your time. You'll be fine.
That's the wrong piece of paper. I don't know. I think it's in this pocket. Is it in this pocket? Okay. I found it. Let me get the glasses, and then we'll be good. So maybe a few things that I have to say might be repetitive. You might have heard them a few minutes ago, but I'm going to talk about, speak about some things that I experienced with Mom, some stories she told me, perhaps through the lens of 80 or 90 years, but we'll see where we go with this. So 2 things happened 2 weeks ago. Greg and I had flown in on Thursday, 2 weeks ago, to see Mom. On Friday night, we had dinner at Tony's. Mom and Carol and Jim were working out which night we were going to have dinner. She said eventually she wanted to celebrate Carol and Jim's anniversary that had happened the month before, and my birthday that had happened the month before. She wanted to host, she wanted to arrange this dinner, and she did. And it was lovely. The picture that you all have seen that is on her obituary was her looking as radiant as I've ever seen and happier than anyone could ever believe. Earlier that afternoon, Greg and I and Mom completed a jigsaw puzzle that we had been working on for 6 months or so, doing some of it nearly every time we visited. Now, Mom liked to work on puzzles, but it got harder for her as this went on, and this one was particularly terrible. It had 500 teeny tiny pieces with a very complicated picture. We finally finished it that day. Looking back, it's really not about the puzzle and solving the puzzle, but it's the time that we got to spend together, the quality time, just sitting together. And Mom kind of, Doug, what are you working on right now? Mom, I'm just kind of working on this area. Well, don't you think you should be, She was a little bossy all the time. My mom was a remarkable woman. She was smart, very opinionated. She was a bomb. And she wanted everything just so, and that sometimes and usually meant her way. She was, and I wrote these words down as I felt them over the months. She was exacting, meticulous, particular, deliberate, and stubborn. But above all, Mom was kind. Mulu, who drove Mom on Wednesdays, said she was easy to work for because she was kind. Mom asked everyone she knew whether they needed him to drive, and he got work. She truly loved life. Y'all have heard about this. Art classes, and began collecting art with a passion and a keen eye. She was very deliberate. She sought out information from people to help them and guide them in their collecting. They really didn't buy anything that Dad and Mom did not agree upon, although Mom, I'll bet, did some arm twisting. Mom and Dad traveled the world, I think, as an adventure. They were early into China, Russia, Vietnam, New Guinea, Africa, all over the world. Because my brothers were grown and off at school, I was the only one left at home, and sometimes they dragged me along. I was very fortunate, and I inherited her sense of curiosity. Mom went into business with her dear friend, Leslie Sumberger, to form the Paper Place. Why? Because she needed rehearsal dinner invitations for Carol and Jimmy's wedding and couldn't find a good stationery store in Houston besides Neiman's, and she said, let's make one. Mom volunteered. You all have heard about this. She was president of the Temple Sisterhood. She was a docent at a museum, was on the national board of the United Jewish Appeal, giving speeches around the country. Mom and Dad led by example and instilled in Jimmy and me the need to give back. As a result, we are both very active volunteers for causes we believe in. It's simply a part of our DNA, and we thank Mom and Dad for that. When Mom and Dad moved to Houston, she left her whole family behind, including her baby sister, Aunt Renee. What an amazing relationship these two sisters had. I've never seen such closeness and love, and we're just going to always get along and make it work. Mom and Dad were soon welcomed into the community. Mom told me a story about a friend of Dad's from college, Arnold Sussman, who hosted a dinner for them shortly after they arrived. At the dinner, they were introduced to friends of theirs who included Lila and Jerry Rauch. The guys were playing golf the next day, and Aunt Lila invited Mom to Mahjong, and Mom said, I don't know how to play Mahjong. And she tried to refuse. But Aunt Lila suggested that she just watch. And by the way, she also said during that time she could not meet Gabby Rauch Glesby because Aunt Gabby was about to have a baby, Susan. By November, they were going to weddings. Aunt Lila, if you're out there, and I think you are, your kindness opened the door to lifelong, wonderful friendships that meant the world to her. Mom and Dad helped host lots of parties with invitations cleverly written, usually by Mom, and often in poem. There was a lot of deception, careful planning appearing to be one party, and it's really something else. She's playing a trick on people. The invitations would ask guests to bring a list of things like a screwdriver or a hat and a bathing suit. And the ruse was they were going to meet at the Shamrock Hotel and board buses to go to a beach party in Galveston, maybe at the Balinese Room. Mom showed me a script for a party. It was hysterical. I'm not reading it here. It was a little bawdy. She was a human too. At one party, all the guests threw their keys in a bowl and then drew them out one by one. Now, you know what that sounds like. It was really about table assignments or something like that, and not a swingers party. But as Mom told me, she thought the people that were not invited were sort of put it out on the rumor mill, and she received a call from Rabbi Schachtel asking what was going on. I think that most of you know that Greg and I had a big family wedding in Dallas in 2016. My family was there, so was Greg's. Greg and I had the amazing privilege of walking both of our moms down the aisle. What more could I have asked for? Mom really loved Greg, and she said, "Greg, you're my son too." Mom wanted us to help her pack up earrings for Lori as a gift for, where are you, Lori? There you are, for her engagement. And it was very important to her that we get it packed up. And I said, I want to see them. And I took one of the earrings and I put it on like this. And she said, you have it all wrong. It's supposed to be like this. And it was a sweet moment of something silly that didn't make her uncomfortable, and I give her a lot of credit for that. As Mom got older, she knew that being active was important. She began to work out with her trainer once a week, and she was proud of her strength, and it served her really well. It really did. And she played mahjong, canasta, bridge. I know y'all have all heard about that, the ballet and the symphony, and she started to slow down. But Mom was very cute in owning her inability to find words. You know how you search for words and you can't find the right one? Well, she'd say, I can't think of that right now, but I'll get back to you when I do. She said, also, I need to find some younger friends because all of us are fading away. And by the way, I'm going to dinner with a new friend. I said, how old is she? She said, she's only 81. Greg taught her to play Wordle, and she played every day. She told me she loved her children, great-grandchildren, grandchildren, and that it was noisy, but she also always said that she was lucky to have them. She was lucky to watch them play with each other and to love each other, and she was amazed at how cute they all were. Early this year, Mom told me that she didn't want me to go on cruises anymore because of COVID, and I said that I understood, didn't agree. After I hung up the phone, I told Greg that my mother could not control my life, but she might just terrorize it a little. Somewhere along the way, Mom discovered sparkly sequins slippers. Her feet really hurt her, and they made her feel better. She told everyone about them and where they could buy them. She loved spreading the word on things that she thought were special, whether they were recipes, books, movies, or anything. I really believe she was happy, and I know that she knew and that she had a life well lived and that she was grateful. As my sweet husband Greg said last night, Mom being gone is another chapter in the book of life. I believe that she left this life peacefully and that her puzzle was complete. And by the way, she's wearing the sequin slippers right now. We love you, Mom. Thank you.
And now Jimmy to share some personal words.
Well, I'm out. There's nothing for me to say. All the good material's gone. Mom lived a long, healthy, and active life. There's a great deal of symmetry to the fact that she lived life at a fast pace, on her own terms, and was well and healthy and active, exercising all the time until the very end. She loved her children. She loved Carol like a daughter. She loved her grandchildren and marveled at her 10 great-grandchildren. They are geniuses, after all. I want to spend a few minutes telling you why Mom was such an interesting and unique person. Harding, her husband of 62 years, and she married immediately after World War II. She moved to Houston as an 18-year-old where she knew no one. Houston was a small town then, and a very welcoming place, and she and Dad met many new people, so many of whom, Lila and Gabby and Lee Layden and so many others, remained her close friends throughout their lives. She also embraced new, and in many cases, younger friends, and enjoyed many of these relationships immensely. Mother loved education. She attended Wellesley as a young woman, and though she had to drop out of college to move to Houston, she took classes and courses throughout her life. She audited classes at Rice, took classes at the Women's Institute in various subjects, and watched countless news programs religiously. She would discuss any topic with anyone, anytime. Mom was involved in many charitable and civic causes, and you've heard about those, but she would happily attend almost any cultural event. She was a member of the SPA, the Houston Grand Opera, and was involved with the ballet so much that the director presented her with ballet shoes to commemorate her long support. Mom opened a fine stationery business, which I thought was a whole new dimension to a person that had never, worked seriously. She loved art, and I mean she loved art. She often traveled to other cities to see a collection in someone's home, and she loved contemporary art, she loved African art, she loved pre-Columbian art, and she studied everything about them and honestly became quite knowledgeable. Mom loved to travel. She's been to Bali, Borneo, South America, everywhere in Europe, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and many places multiple times. She was among the very first to visit China when it opened, or reopened, and in fact, just days after the Vietnam War ended, Dad looked out the window of his airplane at Da Nang Air Base, and he thought that Mom's sense of adventure has gone way too far. She was not a sitting around woman. Call her in the day, call her at night, she was never home. Mom played bridge, canasta, mahjong, and was always on the go. She ran errands with her driver during the day and went out almost every night of the week. There are so many stories to tell you about what a wonderful character she was. And I struggled this morning. I couldn't figure which ones to tell and which ones to leave, but I'll tell you two only in the interest of brevity. The first is that Mom tells me, well, I saw Ziggy this morning in my building. And it's Kenny and Ziggy's, everybody knows, and this guy's a world-class restaurateur. He's known, he's famous. So she says to him, Ziggy, are you working today? He says, well, yes, I am, Mrs. Frankel. And she says, good, would you pick me up a turkey sandwich? And I want it on rye bread with just a little mustard. And I want some cheese, and I want a side of coleslaw, not a big one, a small side of coleslaw. So he said, I don't know what he thought, but he said, why, sure, Miss Frankel. So he goes to work, and of course he brings her home a sandwich. And I'm dying when I'm hearing this story. This is to me. So she says, and I called him and said, Ziggy, I didn't get a bill. And he says, Miss Frankel, you've been my customer for so many years that, I wouldn't dream of charging you. She says, oh no, I insist on paying. Because if I don't pay, I can't ask you to do this again. And God is my witness. Doug and I and Greg were at Kenny and Ziggy's yesterday, and Ziggy came up to the table and said, your mom was such a character, which is exactly what I was thinking to myself. And I said, oh no. I said, I'm going to tell the story of Kenny and Ziggy's tomorrow. He says, well, that's half the story. He tells me she had my cell phone number, and she'd call me all the time, bring me home a quart of soup, bring me home this, bring me home that, bring me home the other. And I said, oh, I'm so embarrassed. He says, you think she's the only one? He says, I delivered more food to little old Jewish ladies than Uber Eats. And I'll tell one more story. I play golf. I've been known to play golf once or twice. And my mother, on, I think, Father's Day, right around then, she calls Joe Chesnick, who I play golf with. I played with him once or twice. And she calls Joe, and Joe grew up with her. And he says, hi, Aunt Lois, how are you? Joe, Jimmy's such a good son. He really is. He does a lot of things for me, and he's such a good boy, and he has all these children. I just really love him so much, and I respect him, and I admire him. I want to get him golf balls for Father's Day. And Joe says, well, Aunt Lois, that's really nice. He says, I just want to know what kind of golf balls to get him. He says, well, don't worry, Aunt Lois. I'll go pick them up for you, and I'll drop them at your apartment. She says, oh, that would be great. So then she says, well, Joe, I want to get him 3 dozen golf balls. 3 dozen. And she says, well, that's what I want. And he says, okay, Ms. Frankel, that'd be great. Or Aunt Lois, he says, that'd be great. And I'll drop them at your apartment. She says, well, just out of curiosity, how much are golf balls now? He says, well, they're about $50 a dozen. She says, 2 dozen will be fine. And that's all I can tell you about my mom. Interesting woman, smart, lovely lady, great, real inspiration to me and my family, taught me a lot about life, and we'll all miss her, and we loved her.
Wonderful memories and stories that help us laugh as we remember all that we cherished. Lois truly lived her life by the principle our tradition teaches us to make each day a blessing, to choose life, to help make the world a bit better. And so this reading that we often share at the beginning of our new year helps us reflect deeply on all that her days were worth. We are taught birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. Earlier this morning, the family and I accompanied Lois to her final resting place. And as we did, we reflected on the deep memories of so many wonderful family members and community members who are now surrounding each other. We are reminded that though a physical presence leaves this earth, the spirit remains, and that is the way we continually feel the love of all of our beloved who have gone from life. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision and grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death, all reveal the divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under divine protection we abide, and by God's love we are comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts, and fill our spirit with abiding trust in you. We conclude our time here in the Gordon Chapel this morning with our final formal prayer, and that is the prayer we refer to as the mourner's Kaddish. It's not a prayer that asks God why or how, for those are not questions that we can answer, but it rather encourages us to reflect on the great blessings of life, those that we will hold and cherish deeply from this time forth and throughout all of our days. For all that was good and enduring in Lois's life, we rise now in her honor and in her memory to recite these sacred words together. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, be'alman divrach yurtei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon v'yomechon u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala v'yizman kariv yimru, amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam almei almaya, yit barach v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu, le'olam min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, damiran b'alma v'yimru, amen. Yehei shlama rabbah min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom b'ramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and bring comfort to all the bereaved among us, as together we say, amen. In just a moment, I'll escort the family into Wolf Tumim Hall, where they will gather for a meal of condolence. I also want to mention on Friday evening during our Shabbat services here in the Gordon Chapel at 6:30 p.m., Lois's name will be mentioned as part of our Kaddish Prayer. You are welcome to attend in person or join us via live stream. As we have come today in peace, so may we leave in peace, especially with the blessing of Lois's life, encouraging us and sustaining one another. Thank you.